back here on WJJay CRH, John Jay Community Radio Hour, and I'm still here with Matthew and the rest of the staff, and I'm also here with a very special guest, a former professor of mine, Professor Greg Donaldson. How are you today, Professor Donaldson?
I'm just fine, thanks.
All right. And I remember I took your class, I think maybe 2 years ago, and that was one of the funnest classes I've ever taken. You had us compare 50 Cent to Macbeth. We read your book, Zebra Town, which is honestly one of my favorite books still to this day. I think about it often. And, you know, being that I had a couple interracial relationships at one point in my life. And what else can I say about Professor Donaldson? Oh, we made a movie. Yeah, that was cool.
Can we talk about that right now? That 50 Cent and Macbeth comparison? That sounds pretty dope.
Okay, here's the deal. So it's a criminal justice and theater class, and I consider rap music to be a type of theater because it's presenting a world. The rappers themselves, sometimes they've undergone the things they're talking about, but a lot of times they're more acting out a part in life and acting out a part with their lyrics. And 50 Cent, in that rap song, Many Men on the Cut, Get Rich or Die Trying, he evinces an aggression and an ambition. He wants to get rich or die trying. And Macbeth himself has ambition to be king. And both of them do ruthless things in order to get it. So I thought it'd be very interesting to compare the two in a paper so the students could do what they're familiar with and compare it to something they're not so familiar with. And it works out really well. Students get excited. They say that both of them have hubris. And hubris, of course, is overconfidence leading to catastrophe. Although 50 hasn't met his end yet.
Right.
No,
that sounds dope to me. I would take the class just for that one lesson.
Yeah, you should take the class. We do a lot of bizarre and crazy things in the class. And we act out scenes, we do improvisations. Sometimes we have improvisations break out right in the middle of the class and people don't even know it. One time a guy burst in and said, "Donaldson, I'm tired of you. You gave me a D in the class. I'm going to blow you away." He was like really angry. And then people jumped up, but it was all part of a play.
Oh, nice.
And people didn't know what was a play and what wasn't. So I'm very excited. I walk in that class and you never know what's going to happen. And the students never know. You know, I say the first rule of my class is, "Thou shalt not bore each other." I won't bore you, you don't bore me.
That should be every class. You need to teach chemistry.
It's at the top of the syllabus, man.
Oh, may I ask you a question? What department is that under? Is that under criminology or?
It's communications and theater arts.
Oh, okay.
That's right, CTA department, what's up?
Yeah, Professor Winston. We call him Dr. Professor in the hood.
Yeah, he's good.
Yeah, we call him. So if you see him, you see him back. Yo, what's up, Dr. Professor? That's what we call him.
Professor.
Yeah.
Tell us about your book, Zebra Town.
Zebra Town is a story of Kevin Davis. I met Kevin Davis. Should I tell the story again? I wrote a book called The Ville, and the publishers of The Ville, Houghton and Mifflin, didn't like the cover. I didn't like the cover they had, so they said, "You better go out and take your own cover." So I did. I went with a bodyguard and a photographer, and we went out on the street to shoot another cover. We walked up to a bunch of young men that were standing underneath a flagpole, and I asked them, "Can we take your picture?" And they said, "No. As a matter of fact, you better back up on out of here before somebody gets hurt." So as we backed up, like I had his hand on his gun, boom, 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 all of a sudden a car backfired in the street. They all turned to the sound, thinking it was a gunshot, and just then the photographer took their picture, boom, and that's what came out on the cover of my book. When the book came out, the detectives in the 73rd Precinct took a look at the cover and they said, "We want him, and we want him for murder. We want him for the Amboy homicide." They used the book as a wanted poster and they tracked him down. He did 10 years for aggravated weapons possession, and when he got out of jail, he came looking for me. He came to the front desk with John Jay and called up to my office. Killer Kevin Davis. And that was the beginning of the conversation.
Nice.
And I wrote a book about him called Zebra Town.
And Zebra Town really, you know, it captures the experiences of Kevin Davies as he's, you know, reestablishing himself outside of prison, and you know, the obstacles that he goes through, like living a life away from Brownsville, away from Brooklyn, in a place that he thinks is really good, which they call Zebra Town. And I really, you know, I'm glad that I'm talking to you today. You know, really it's glad to catch. I'm really thankful to be catching
It's really good. Yeah, the moment he was looking out his prison window and he looked down on the street and he said, "Why do I got to go back to Brownsville and live in that very rough world? Why don't I live to that quiet street?" And that's what he did when he got out of prison. Instead of going back to Brooklyn, he went up to Elmira. But guess what? He brought his own issues, his internal conflicts with him, and he created another Brownsville in this country setting. He brought his gunmen up. He brought his pistoleros. Next thing you know, you got crews shooting each other back and forth in Elmira, New York, because it was internal, it wasn't all external.
Can I ask you a question real quick, Professor? this is the radio show, and we like to listen to music. What's your favorite type of music?
So,
Tell me, you know, I know it's hip hop. I mean, because you sound like a hip hop lover.
well, you know, riding dirty.
Yeah.
When I tell you stop riding dirty and we won't bother you, no. I have mixed, eclectic tastes in music. One of my friends told me I was listening to country music, and she said, you know, that music is for old white men. I said, well, take a good look.
You know what? I don't believe in that. You know, I heard this quote. I forgot who's it from, and it was like, "If it wasn't for heartbreaks, there'll be no country."
That's right.
Right? Country is like it's heartbreaking music.
I like the Motown. I like various music, but rap music certainly has some fascinating things, and certainly if you want to learn and you want to understand what's going on, you got to listen to it.
Yep. It's political music.
Yep. Do you like psychedelic music?
No.
No. Okay.
No, when I was in college and everybody was listening to that psychedelic music, I couldn't understand it. And then I found out everybody was taking LSD. That's why they
liked it.
That's why they liked it. I wasn't doing it, so I couldn't understand it. Even Jimi Hendrix.
Yeah,
I couldn't understand when I went to a Jimi Hendrix concert and I walked out. Can you imagine Jimi Hendrix live right in front of you and I walked out? You couldn't, because everybody was. Huh?
You should have participated in the trip, man.
No, I was a ball player. I went to play basketball in college. I couldn't do that. It would test you. So
You can't be tripping and playing ball.
We used to put strips of LSD acid, you know, like in his bandana, and he used to just rip solos, and the sweat would just rip through his pores, and he'd just be like,
you know what he's fascinating for? There's just a special on him on Channel 13. He's fascinating for fitting into no category. He was just totally a complete. He was image breaker. Whatever it was, he was going to break it.
Right. He touched every genre basically in like 2 songs.
you can't put a genre on artists like Jimi Hendrix or Black Sabbath or anything like that. You can't classify it as rock or metal. It's its own thing, you know. And we need more people to be unique in this world.
We need people to break those standards.
We do. I would just like to say one more thing. You know, I love teaching at JJay. There's so many different kinds of students. There's students from India, from Kosovo, from Russia, from Ireland, from the Caribbean, the Jamaicans, Guyanese. It's fascinating. Just look at the class, Barbados. You're from Barbados?
I'm from Barbados, my father.
I love Freetown, right? Yeah. I love Barbados.
Yeah, I love Barbados.
I was thinking of doing a sabbatical and teach a year at the University of West Indies and then in Barbados.
Really? If you go there, I would be glad to travel with you.
Oh, it's so peaceful. You know, I went to Barbados and I had just come from Guyana. I don't want to knock Guyana. I love Guyana. And I was in Georgetown. Then I was in Barbados. In Barbados, the only place I couldn't get in was 2 flowers. Young people are so educated and they're so sophisticated and so peaceful and intelligent. They go into the library, packing in the library on a Saturday. I found that fascinating and so uplifting.
I'll tell you a little trick to that. It's called a cuckoo stick. I don't know if you know about the cuckoo stick.
No.
You ever had cuckoo in Barbados?
No.
All right. It's this cornmeal and flying fish dish. And when your parents get mad, they used to beat you with the cuckoo stick. So that cuckoo stick, that made you go to the library on Saturday. I can tell you firsthand experience.
It's good disciplinary. You can tell somebody's being disciplined. It's a beautiful place. I'm going to go back for sure.
Yes, sir. Thank you. And thank you again for your time.
Well, thank you.
What's the class number? Is it DRA?
DR225.
DR225. Nice.
And so, come on down.
Yeah, and then compare Macbeth to some 50 Cent.
Man.
Thank you.
Do you have that song?
I do have that song. Should I
Let's
play it
play
right
that.
now?
Yeah, let's play that.
I mean, they said no cursing, but we gotta play it for a professor.